As soon as you and I saw the EQS, we knew it was just a matter of time until the E-Class went electric. Now, aside from what governments around the world tell us, is that a good thing? Okay, so let's start at the beginning. What exactly is this? Well, technically, it's not an E-Class. It's not even based on the same platform that underpins the gasoline-powered E-Class. It's also not based on the same platform as the EQS. Rather, it's an E-Class size, fully electric vehicle based on a completely new architecture that underpins this, but will also underpin many mid-size electric vehicles coming out of Mercedes-Benz over the years to come. Now, it is on offer in two different flavors, a two-wheel drive, which means rear-wheel drive in this case, or all-wheel drive, which this car is. That does impact the output. So whether it's all-wheel drive or two-wheel drive, it's 215 kilowatts, which is about 288 horsepower. However, the number of drive wheels impacts the torque. So in the case of the two-wheel drive, it's 391 pounds of torque. In the case of this one, the all-wheel drive, it's 564 pounds of torque. Now that's a bit lower than the EQE 500 we've already driven. Remember, that was 402 horsepower and 633 pounds of torque. Then there's the battery, which is effectively a queen-size mattress you are sitting on, 90.6 kilowatt hours. And no, it's not 800-volt architecture, which means to go from 10 to 80%, that's about 32 minutes. Then there are the performance figures, again dictated by how many drive wheels. So in the case of the rear-wheel drive, 0 to 60 in 6.2 seconds. This one, the all-wheel drive, 6 seconds. VMAX on both, 130 miles an hour. Just because it's smaller than an EQS does not mean it's light. 5,551 pounds, or depending on express weights and measures, 2,517 kilograms. If it were a two-wheel drive, it'd be 350 pounds lighter. Oh, it gets up and goes pretty well, but once we get to like 45, 50 miles an hour, it feels like something falls off. It doesn't have all the same torque that it does from low down. Basically, 0 to about 40, it's a quick car. Above that, it's not what you'd expect from even the most basic, like 4-cylinder E-Class ICE. That's something that's missing here in the translation. Then there are the driving dynamics, and here we gotta split it into ride quality, what you expect, and then the brakes. Let's start with the ride quality. It's exactly what Mercedes has been going for over the past, 2, almost 3 years since they've been giving us full electric vehicles. And that is something softer, something we haven't expected from Mercedes. If I were to put my finger on this, I would say this is closer to a Lexus. If Lexus made a mid-size rear-wheel drive sedan. It's got compliance, but it doesn't have the composure that even a basic E-Class would. That's something I don't understand if Mercedes is doing that by design, or that's just the issue with the weight of the platform. And then there's the driving dynamics. And here, again, it's a big function of, it's a bit softer. You got to get into it with a different view. If I were reading the tea leaves correctly, I do not believe Mercedes has set the mission of this to be a sort of luxury sedan that's got the bones of a sports sedan, which is really what a basic E-Class is, and that's what's missing here from the driving dynamics. Now you and I need to discuss two aspects regarding the brakes. First would be what the Germans refer to as recuperation, something you and I would refer to as regen brakes. Here there are 3 settings. There's strong recuperation, which I am using now to great effect. There's normal recuperation, and there's no recuperation. The strong recuperation works really well on this road, in this weather, going downhill faster than I should. I have to say it helps it be a bit more dynamic going around these roads. Although the suspension doesn't really cash those checks, you feel the weight so much more when you push this thing aggressively, more so than you do in other electric vehicles, which brings us to a huge point about the brakes. Like the EQE 500, there's not enough brakes here. Like, I don't know if it's a function of the weight, maybe the size of the brakes, but there needs to be more stopping power in a vehicle, even with only 288 horsepower. Yes, it is indeed that time again to play your favorite game on the options game with today's contestant, a mid-sized, fully electric Mercedes-Benz sedan. No, that is not a hatchback because that is a trunk right there. Now, technically, this will not be a full round of the game because we don't have all the pricing information, just the base price as well as the different trim levels, that old trick that Mercedes has been doing with all the EQ models that we've tested as of late. Now, this one here is the EQE 350 4MATIC. Technically, the cheap seats is the EQE 350 two-wheel drive, which has a base price of $74,900. Now, there are three different trim levels, and ironically, they call the cheap seats the premium. Then they move up to the exclusive, and then there's this one, the most fancy, which is the pinnacle. Now, if one wants all-wheel drive on any of those, it's an extra $3,000. So this one here, the EQE 350 4MATIC Pinnacle, has a base price of $83,500. Now, what makes up an exclusive and what makes up a Pinnacle? For example, the exclusive, that adds the driver's assistance package. No, this is not a self-driving car. It is simple level 2 autonomy, as well as augmented reality for the navigation system. Then the Pinnacle, that adds the head-up display, the 4-zone climate control, the air balance, which is that fragrance system they pilfered from the S-Class, as well as the digital light package. Now, this car is fitted with a couple of standalone options. Obviously, you and I have seen this color before. It's Salente Gray. Now, technically, it's nice. However, I personally like the red that we saw in the EQE 500 we've already driven. Now, that being the case, the interior of this car, they picked a couple of unique options. There's a two-tone interior on this one, which is Neva Gray and Sable Brown. That works in conjunction with a gray matte wood finish on the dash. Nice touch and works with the Salente Gray. Then they add a couple of interesting things. Number one, the most important, one can have the 4.5 degrees of rear wheel steering, or in this case, 10 degrees of rear wheel steering. Both cases on an EQE 350, that you have to pay extra for. On a 500, that comes fitted as standard, at least in the US. Then this one's also fitted with heated rear seats, heated and cooled front seats, as well as a very large Hepa filter. That is the reason why you can't open the hood. Then there's destination and handling, $1,150. I would argue this one with all those options, probably about $95,000 US. That being the case, a word about the design. Now, I know in many previous EQ episodes, you guys have not been excited about this one-bow design, and in reality, it has to look this way because they need to get the efficiency, and by doing that, they need to lower the coefficient of drag. Now, why is that important? Well, they increase the range. This is a vehicle, we already learned, 5,500 pounds. However, the US government says it has 305 miles of range. That being the case, I understand you're going for efficiency, I understand you're going for range, but does it really need to look like the EQS? Or what most likely will be the EQC that will look exactly the same, just smaller? What I'd be looking for here is, let's separate them out a bit more, give them their own personality, so I understand you're looking for this familial look of an electric vehicle, but give it its own personality that goes along with the size. So an important note about the steering as it relates to a key dimension. The wheelbase here is close to that of an S-Class, even though the length of the vehicle is more along the lines of an E-Class. So one would think, man, this would be tough to get around corners, or at least steer. That's where the 4.5 and 10 degrees of rear wheel steering come in. This one has the 10 degree, and around a parking lot, it's otherworldly. I'd say a game changer handed down from the S-Class. In this case, it makes the stability going around roads like this a bit better with the four-wheel steering than without the four-wheel steering. Like, for example, going around a turn like this, you don't notice that the wheelbase is almost as long as that of a BMW 7 Series. Okay, so what have we learned today? Well, it drives very well, but there is a catch. You see, every time you and I drive an electric vehicle, especially a sedan, I can't help but bring up the personality discussion. What is a personality when it comes to an electric vehicle? Well, it's not enough for a car company to bring out an electric car nowadays. It has to be something first and then the electric propulsion system. Like, for example, Porsche brought out the Taycan. That is 70 years of engineering of driving dynamics first, then it's an electric vehicle. Even Mercedes was able to pull off this trick with the EQS. That is a luxury car first and then an electric vehicle. There is no first. There is no personality. It's just an electric vehicle, a good one, but it doesn't have any appreciable difference in the way it drives from the slew of other electric vehicles, whether they're sedans or crossovers, that have come out from other manufacturers that don't have fancy brands, which brings us to the significant problem of, is this a $25,000 better experience than, say, a Hyundai Ioniq 5? I can't honestly say that, which brings us to the wish list. And here, I'm looking for more of a personality. You did the trick with the EQS, where it's a luxury car. How about this, making it more of a sports sedan? Now granted, everybody has the penalty of weight with electric vehicles, but BMW was able to figure that out with the i4, where it is the first electric vehicle I was able to drive and steer with my right foot. This one could use more of that than try to be the luxury vehicle that the EQS is. And I don't think this is impossible to do within its life cycle. They could spend some time engineering in more personality. But I am one man, and this is the point of the episode where I turn this around to you guys to opine in the comments below, or via our social media, MotoManTV, all one word, MotoManTV, all one word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you got some value out of this episode, please subscribe and share these with your friends on all your socials. I would also suggest have a look at the EQS SUV episode that we drove in Colorado, both on and off-road. Until I see you in the next episode, Bish Beta.